Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Artist Happy Hour. My name is Asaf Ronen with the Austin Creative Alliance, and we're doing two things today. First of all, we're bringing attention to the Artist Emergency Relief Fund that we've been raising money for and so far have been distributing to a lot of artists' need here in Austin. And we're also talking to a panel of professional artists here in Austin who are making the transition virtually with all their arts education offerings. And so let's see who's on our panel today, starting with...
Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Arjet, and I am at the Hideout Theater. I'm the youth programs director, and so we're doing all sorts of classes for youth and for adults. We're doing shows. We're coming up with new and creative ways to make use of this exciting, challenging time.
Hi, everyone. I'm Naimpally. I'm artistic director of Austin Dance India, and I teach Bharatanatyam, which is a classical Indian dance form, and I've just literally taken everything virtually and am teaching all my classes online now. And I'm actually still trying to find some creative ways of doing a recital online with kids who are in separate places. So I would love to learn a little bit more about what everybody else is doing too.
Hey y'all, I'm Winnie Hsia. I'm the owner of Sky Candy. We're an aerial and circus arts studio. We made the transition to moving all of our floor-based classes and things that we could teach without specialized apparatuses to an online platform on March 30th, and we're currently teaching 50 classes a week with 13 different teachers.
Hey, I'm Clara Brill. I'm a violin performer and viola and violin teacher, as well as program director of the Mother Falcon Music Lab. I started teaching my private lessons about a month ago online, and it's been a learning experience, and I'm really excited to hear more and learn more about the opportunities out there and how everybody else is managing.
Hi, I'm Jenny Lavery, and I am the theater education director at the Austin Jewish Repertory Theater. Currently, we are doing Little Mermaid Junior with 25 5 to 12-year-olds. And we have, yes, and we have a performance, a virtual performance coming up in May.
Got to get used to unmuting myself. First of all, thank you all for taking the time at this time when time is meaningless to join and talk about all this and kind of share our experiences of how we've had to modify what we've learned along the way and maybe some of the possible benefits in doing virtual education on top of what you've usually done. So my first question is to you, Jessica. So you and I have talked before about, and you told me that 80% of every experience can be translated into the virtual world, which...
Yeah.
And I'm curious, what was some of that 20% that you had to let go of, and what was some of that 80% that was definitely that you were able to secure most?
Sure, yeah. I would say, so I'm going to start with the 20% because I like to end on happy things. So I would say the 20% that I had to let go was there's, in improv, there's a lot of touching and you can't do that. You can't clap. You can't synchronize very well, so there's a lot of chanting that doesn't work here. So those are big things, but a lot of why kids take classes, we have a bunch of different types of classes. One of them is for homeschoolers, another is for kids on the autism spectrum, another one's for just Saturday kids. And a lot of the reasons that those kids take classes is socialization and being able to have fun with other kids. And that's very different in this form. So I had to find ways to still let the kids enjoy their time together, but in this form. And I would say just the whole improv is very spontaneous and you work off the energy of each other. and trying to figure out that energy through this medium has been more difficult. The kids shows is we kind of have to work for each other in the kids shows, because no matter how many people say clap, clap, clap in the chat, it doesn't feel the same as a child giggling. It's just a different situation. So that's the negative 20%. The 80%, and some things are better in chat. There's some games that just work better in this milieu than they do in the original. And you can do some silly things like, we discovered that you can be a giant, you know, and that can be fun. And you can play with the perspectives. There's a lot of things that you can play with in the cameras that's super fun to play with. And as improvisers, that's something that I try to train people to be like, be open to trying new stuff, like work with the medium that you have. The stuff that does still work is that even though you can't make physical connection and some of that connection is gone, man, when the kids see their friends in the classes, they're so happy to see them, right? They still get to hang out with their friends. And a lot of the kids that I teach are of the age where just hanging out on Zoom is really awkward. Like Asaf and I can have a conversation because we're adults and we can just have a conversation. But kids have a hard time. They usually do stuff actively. So in my classes, that's what that's for. And I actually even started, we're going to plug later, but I started these classes that are drop-in classes just so that kids can have a way to interact with other kids through this medium. And they've been really enjoying that. And like little groups of friends will join in so that they have a chance to do something with their friends and play with their friends. So that's the 80% that's been really good, is that we still get to see each other. Like it's still great. And in some ways it's fun to, you know, just try something new and embrace the challenge of what is this. That being said, if I never have to teach another class on Zoom, I'm gonna be okay. So.
Well, yes, but meantime, you're all part of the Zombie apocalypse, so welcome. Anu, speaking of limitations, working in such a physical medium, how are you dealing with the restraints of this box? I mean, you and I were talking the other day, and you mentioned just getting adjusted to the new left and right.
Yes, absolutely. I think for me, because I teach a very specific type of dance technique, and it's down to, you know, like the fingers and how much energy is in the fingers, and then the feet position, the knees, I mean, every part of the body, even the eyes and the eyebrows. So it's expressions plus minor parts of the body. And because it's so specific, what happens is the kids on the other end, their setup is different for all of them. Some of them are in their bedroom, some of them are in some common space in their home, some of them are on a carpet. The surfaces are different. And so often I can see them parts of their body and not other parts of their body, or if they move, they completely disappear. If they go down and squat in a squatting position, they're completely gone. So that's the thing that I struggle with. And then like I was mentioning to you about the right and left, I have no problems if there are bodies in front of me in a classroom. I'm facing them and I'm doing my left side, but I'm saying right. And, you know, mirroring is something that we dance teachers do a lot of, and it's very easy for me to do that. But with this format, which is two-dimensional, and I'm looking at all these little windows, it has completely messed up my brain with the right and left mirroring ability. And so I taught one whole class saying the opposite, and I was insisting with one student, no, it's the right. And then they're saying, but you just did the left. And I was like, oh yeah, I did, didn't I? So it's something that I'm still trying to get used to, and I've kind of got a fix where I turn my computer to the mirror and I stand in front of the mirror, and then it helps me not mirror because they are seeing the mirror. And I believe now in Zoom you can also, I think, mirror yourself. I haven't really experimented with that yet. But yeah, those are some of the things that I'm facing. Also the time lag, because rhythm is so important. We do a lot of intricate rhythms. And so when I'm saying something here, everybody is about a count and a half behind me. So I can't tell if they're actually really on the beat or not, because it just doesn't happen. And then if I'm doing something sort of continuously at this end, it tends to cut out for them. They completely lose audio, and then it's hard for them to pick up. So there's little things like that, but at the same time, I mean, I think one of the positives is there's some kids in class who rely on other kids. They're always looking at somebody else to see what's next in the choreography, or, you know, not thinking for themselves. But since they're by themselves, they really have to focus and try to understand it and get it themselves in their own bodies. So I think that's a really positive thing that I'm finding, that each one of them has to sort of focus on themselves and bring their focus inwards to their own bodies, rather than just rely on somebody else to remember things. So there's it's a learning process for sure, but I'm just really grateful to see them every week. And I think they're also grateful that we can continue in this format. So yay for technology. For sure.
Yeah, I'm sure they are grateful. And I'm just curious to touch a little bit deeper on what you were saying, that because everyone's learning from their own home, just the amount of space that they all personally have is a factor. And how have you, in instructing dance, shifted what the baseline requirement is, as far as so that it fits any space that they're in?
Right. Well, that's the thing. So for me, my semester ends sort of in May, and so we're sort of at the end of our session. So they've all completed their pieces, and some of them were starting new pieces. And as I was thinking about what pieces would be okay to do in this format, I was trying to think about how I could modify things. And so I have gone to some pieces that are a little bit easier to teach in this format and are not as detailed or nuanced, where it could get lost in this format, where it's really, you need that personal interaction. So yeah, those are some of the things that I've had to modify. And then, the surfaces are different too. And so sometimes balance can be an issue for some of the kids if they're on a sort of a cushy carpet or something. So that has affected footwork, which is really important for the technique. So yeah, some of these things you have to kind of sort of almost, I feel like, lower the bar in some sense, or change the bar, I suppose, in some way. I'm not even sure if I can define that yet, because I'm still learning about what that is. But yeah, it's definitely a learning
Or maybe
curve.
redefine the hierarchy of skills.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way of putting it. I think redefine what it is that we're going to focus on right now. That's important. Yeah.
So Winnie, in addition to dealing with a very physical art form, there's also a lot of specialized equipment that's usually involved in aerialism that people learning from home don't have access to, or might not be able to set up. I know one of your students personally, and she very excitedly purchased her own pole so she could continue some of her aerial work at home. But for other people, not an option. So what methods have you come up with where it deals with equipment, the equipment of the art form, and getting access to that?
Yeah, definitely. So largely what we teach at our studio, and it is a specialized facility so that we can, hang thousands of pounds in the air and have all this specialized equipment. We came very quickly to the conclusion that we just couldn't continue doing that. There's also an insurance limitation for us. It's not a thing that we are allowed to teach remotely. So we basically turned our focus to all the things that we had that were complementary: flexibility, conditioning, dance, and kind of let our teachers also come up with creative ideas. So we have a soup can shoulder prehab class that's very popular. And it's basically just like, as aerialists, we use our shoulders a lot. And so using something that everyone has in their house as a way of like conditioning those parts of the body have been a way for us to offer classes that help aerialists and help other people while also making it accessible. We've also modified a lot of our dance classes. So we have a class called 4x4 dance, and if you have a 4x4 square of space in your house, you can do this choreography. We also added a dance your couch, which we couldn't teach at the studio. There's things that have come out of it that are things that we could never teach at Sky Candy. We couldn't teach a dancing on your couch class. We couldn't teach a use your own pull-up bar class at the studio, right? Because we just don't have the facility for it. So we've done a lot of things to adapt. And the classes that we were able to keep, like active flexibility, have also been really popular. So things that don't really require any specialized equipment, or that, if you don't have a yoga block, maybe you have a thick book in your house, or if you don't have a foam roller, you can use like a rolled up towel, and that's close enough for the thing that we're doing. So I think it's really opened my eyes to like making our classes even more accessible. And I've really loved seeing students that we had who like moved to other parts of the country, like just take classes with us again. I'm like, oh, you're still part of our community and you're there.
That sounds like a wonderful benefit. And how do you feel like some of that might carry over once we are able to socialize again, as far as considering what people might have at home or other workarounds that could continue beyond?
Yeah, we're looking at so we've already built this kind of intense infrastructure for our online classes. So we're definitely thinking of maintaining some of them, especially the ones that require equipment that you only have at home, like a dance your couch or a soup can shoulder prehab or a pull-up bar workout. And possibly also like simulcasting some of our live classes to online audiences, so that if someone at home wanted to take active flexibility, they could do it at home. I'll also be really honest, I'm not a morning person, and I've taken all of our morning classes because I can like roll out of bed and like move for 30 minutes and then be like, all right, I'm awake now, which is not something I think I could have ever convinced myself to do in rush hour traffic in Austin. So I think a lot of those things will continue to keep on the schedule to kind of accommodate the various different needs that we've seen arise from this, that I think will probably persist. I think there will still be not morning people. I think there will still be people who want to work out on their pull-up bar.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds wonderful. Clara, in teaching music, we already mentioned, and you already mentioned some of the issues with the lag and all that, and how do we synchronize, and how we lack the clarity in virtual world that we would have in real life. And I'm sure you've had to modify around that a little bit. What has been your experience with teaching music in this medium?
So I agree that actually there have been a lot of positive things that have come out of it, just because of the challenge and because it like forces you to rethink your go-to methods for teaching. So one of my go-to methods with my students is I'll usually like adjust something, and now they have to do all of those adjustments on their own, and actually having them sort of monitoring themselves and more like in ownership of that, I think has been a really positive benefit of this, because I'll have to ask them like, was that the sound glitching, or did something happen there? And then they'll let me know, and then we'll work on it. Fortunately, I know my students sound already pretty well and their habits pretty well, so I can kind of gauge what's going on. But it's I was so scared to start teaching online because I thought that it was going to be a huge failure for me, and I almost just called it off. It's been about a month now, but I was really surprised that it was possible to still be an effective teacher at all. And something that I've had to do to supplement that and to keep people on track in like the private student setting is starting to make videos of their lessons, so that because I can't just make them repeat 15 times. they're going to watch that back, and they're going to learn so much more and in a different way than they've been learning with me through that. Also, we have a Google Drive going, so that I can put their lesson notes in there, and just like being more streamlined and more organized has been helpful for all of us in this time while we're not able to really be together. I also have them trying to collaborate on projects using GarageBand. Mm-hmm. So like a trio I was trying to put together, I'm hoping that we can actually build that on GarageBand. They're all doing some creative projects too, as part of, keeping them motivated and actually making some of their practicing exciting. and using some of the skills that we would be working on anyways, and trying to introduce this more creative element so that they're actually kind of exploring a bit more with their time. So it's definitely different for every student, but yeah, I think that the negatives are sort of outweighed by all these wonderful discoveries too at the same time, and just having them have the ownership over their progress and practice has been the biggest thing.
So they're developing self-sufficiency skills in
Yeah.
addition to learning the art form.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah.
Jenny, you have a situation where you're working with 25 kids. Was it 25 kids on one project? A musical theater project. So that's a lot of overlapping. That's a lot of collaboration. And I can't even imagine how I would go about making it happen in this space. What have you learned about how to modify your usual techniques?
So I've learned so much in just 3 classes. The first is that having all 25 of them on at one time is not the best use of our time. Just because it gets chaotic and attention spans are really difficult, especially I teach kids as young as 5. And it's hard when you're in your bedroom and you're really proud of like your stuffed animals who are in the room with you. You want to show everybody, you want to show your friends. So, so we limit the whole group time. There's still some time where we get together and I mute them all and we sing to the track because of the time lag, having everybody's voices, it just makes Zoom cut out. So we don't do that, but they still really enjoy hearing the track and singing it together and watching everybody do the choreography. But what has been like really effective is to have them come at different times during the class and do more one-on-one individual time with them and then just smaller group scene work. And it has actually been really lovely. We've also made the decision to, in the scene work, to just focus on sitting in front of your camera and kind of changing it from a stage production to an acting for the camera class. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of have taken away all what I'm doing right now, gesturing with our hands and everything, and just focusing on your face in the box, and kind of what Jessica was saying earlier, like how close are you to the camera, how far away, and the like big physical moves that you can do, and then really focusing on the expression in your voice. So we've just kind of shifted, and we think for the final production we're gonna weave together a film of all of these recorded moments, because otherwise it gets too hard. And then I think we'll have a moment at the end where we have them all get on and do something live all together. But that has been really useful. I'll also say that some of our younger friends in the class have also been gaining a lot of technological experience doing it. Just the idea of like stopping your video so that you disappear for a second and then triggering it again where you would appear and enter the scene. When they figure out how to do that, they're so excited by it. And so there's those tricks that are fun to discover with them too.
Yeah. And you're using different technology to allow for some of this. A lot of us were talking earlier, Zoom comes up a lot right now, but Zoom has certain limitations, especially with the work that you're doing, and you're using something else in addition to Zoom.
Yeah, we're experimenting with several different things, but we're using Jam Kazam to try to get more than one singer on at the same time. And so we're still working on that. The rest of what we're doing though is we're sending click tracks home to the parents, and then all of our students hopefully will be able to just listen to it through their headphones, sing through the song, and then on the back end we're going to weave all those moments together. what's been going around the internet, being kind of sold as live, but it's not.
Right. So now working with kids, there are all sorts of additional, and show of hands, how many people are currently working with kids solely or in addition to adults? No, so 4 out of the 5. And one of the things that I recently became aware of, and I'm curious if anyone has had any experience with this can be a very problematic thing for some kids, showing where they live. That for one teacher brought that to my attention, that they had to do a check-in, make sure kids were okay with this, and to make room for that and help them figure out how to broadcast without showing anything about their lives that could open themselves up to whatever. It's a very vulnerable thing. Has anyone had any experience with anything like that, or any other modifications in working with kids in this medium at all? Jessica?
I do have, so far everybody's been very proud of their houses, so I haven't had that issue. But I do have several children who have very busy houses and they don't have a room to themselves, or where their internet is in a busy kitchen. And so we do have to deal with adults walking back and forth and talking to other children, or babies crying, or that kind of stuff. And sometimes we'll ask the child to put it on mute, but sometimes you just kind of let it go and deal with it, add it to the scene somehow or another. It's been an interesting challenge being in people's homes, but I actually feel that it's been really, really useful for the shyer children, because they're in a place where they feel comfortable. And so I've actually seen more children be able to be kind of out of their shell because they feel comfortable in their homes. They don't feel as, it's not as intense as being in person.
Jenny, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, not around being afraid to like show your space that you're in, but I have had one student that being on Zoom and just seeing people in this way makes her very, very sad, and to the point of like tears, and where it's emotionally not a good thing, because I think it just reminds her that she's not with the people that she wants to be with. So her parents made the decision that, and it was one of our younger students, that this probably wasn't a great thing for her. So she pulled out, but she's the only one that we've had that with.
Mm-hmm. Anu?
Yeah, I haven't had any problem with the kids, embarrassed about where they're living, or afraid to show where they're living. But I do sometimes see that, they may be in their room or in some other place in the house, and sometimes the background can get distracting for the other kids, and so they'll say, "Oh, look at that in your, oh, you've got that in your room," or whatever, and so it becomes a little bit of a distraction sometimes, depending on the age group, of course. But yeah, the backgrounds can sometimes be distracting. And speaking of backgrounds, I'm sorry if I was like moving around. I had to go get my charger. I was running out of battery here. But yeah, that was one of the things I've noticed.
All the things that we forget. Like, I've got to turn on that app with all those notification dings on it before I start a class, or make sure it's fully charged, or that extra bandwidth that we have to devote in our prep time as teachers. Clara, you had something to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's good, Zoom has that option to do a blank background or something like that. I haven't experimented with it since the first time I did Zoom, though, where it kind of backfired on me. I like put on an aurora in the background, and it like made my instrument disappear every time that I'd come up, and it was like, so it can be a pro and a con, but I think that that's a good option to have, like just blur the background or something like that.
That's good to
I don't know how many apps have that, but yeah.
So one common thread has been how we as teachers, we need to change, right? We need to adapt. I have a friend who often said that you're the best teacher when you're willing to learn from the teaching experience. I'm curious what's going to be your takeaway that you're going to take back to the classroom, and or how do you think that your students are changing in how they connect with you as a teacher? I mean, just the fact that Clara's students have to become more self-sufficient, that's something that will carry over, or that Jessica's students are learning to deal with lots of distractions, which will probably make them more focused in a less chaotic classroom environment. What other beneficial changes in ourselves as teachers or our students as students can we foresee that will come out of this process? Anyone have a thought on that? Jessica?
Yeah, I actually am very excited about using the medium, and it's been fun to see how the kids try new things. Improv is essentially an art about shaking things up and doing things differently, making mistakes, trying new things. And so this has been a really fun place to work with that. And I've already started thinking, like, how can I add like video stuff? Like, can we add this in sometime later? That I do think that because we don't have traffic, more of the kids have been able to get together after school with friends of theirs that they haven't been able to get together with otherwise. So there's been weirdly more connection in that way, which has been kind of fun. So yeah, that's.
Winnie, how about for you?
So most of what we work with is in a discipline where we really heavily emphasize spotting. So even in some of the classes that we're teaching online, like handstands, there were concerns around, well, what if someone new joins and they've never done a handstand before and they don't have a spotter available? And we've come up with lots of alternatives. Using the wall is one, doing a headstand, doing these 20,000 conditioning exercises that come before a handstand. So it's something that was already part of our teaching philosophy of, like, meeting people where they are and giving them what they need. But it's become even more apparent of, like, oh, I can't help you get into this. I can't stand next to you if you are doing it dangerously. So I have to be careful with what tools I'm giving you. And then also I have to trust that you can take that information. I think especially in what we do, there's lots of videos on the internet that exist around, like, do your first handstand, do this thing on an aerial rig or on a silk point that you've hung from, a tree, like lots of things that I consider really dangerous that I think it's making me face the reality of, like, people have always had access to that. Like, for the last 10 years, people have been able to get that. So how do we responsibly move forward in a world where we now are also offering online content?
Cool. Anu, anything to add?
Yeah, I'm actually considering keeping a couple of online classes going even after I get back in the studio with my students, because I think Winnie mentioned that some of the students who have moved away or live far away are able to join in, and that's exactly what's happened to me. I have some adult students who moved away to California, and they're going to be joining classes because they're online now. So it's kind of neat that we can reach more people this way. And so I think I'm probably going to continue doing a few of the classes online, and I'll have to probably get a little more creative as to the content for those classes. And as I said, I'm still learning because it's just been a few weeks, and still trying to figure that out. But I'm encouraged that it's going to work, and I can keep in touch, and they can keep in touch with the dance.
And I'm sure there are also opportunities of those potential students that live just far enough out that it's hard for them to commute to Austin for classes, but are close enough where they're aware of everything that's happening here that we could probably be reaching out to.
Yes.
With these
Absolutely.
opportunities. And I'm sure that's the same in every city that exists. There are people that are just outside. There's a real outreach opportunity here for that. So I do want to do one last question to the group. and then find out a little bit more about the classes that you're offering so everybody watching can follow up on that if they're interested. And the main thing is, for teachers that haven't yet delved into this medium, what would be a good best practice that you would suggest to them, or rule of thumb, or, you know, mantra to hold on to for that? Jenny, I'd like to start with you this time.
I think flexibility is so key. That I think that having learning objectives, switching and changing to fit the medium is okay, and should be expected. And then like seeing where the opportunities are in this new medium. Like for example, on stage, right, a man going overboard looks one way, but on camera can be so funny when a student just gets really stiff and just out of frame. So what are like what are the opportunities in the medium?
Mm-hmm. And are there any classes or events, virtual events, that you want to plug at this moment?
Austin Jewish Repertory Theater has a class for 5 to 12-year-olds each semester, so there will be a fall class starting in September.
All right, great. Clara, for you, any best practices or rules of thumb that you?
I think that for me, it has something to do with how to engage the students, like, and how to also stay engaged yourself in this medium. So a way I think that has helped me is both just the organizational aspect. Like I had to just make a new email, like right off the bat. I was like, okay, I can't live in my personal email anymore. If everything's going virtual, it's going to have to be separate. So just like being okay with, you know, thinking about what you need to make it work. And then also, yeah, what's going to keep you guys connected on what you're working on, and what's going to keep you guys engaged so that this can be productive and continue, because we don't really know, you know, what's next necessarily. So I think having you know, stuff that you're excited to share with them is really special.
And any upcoming classes or events that you want to plug?
Well, so I'm always available for private lessons. My email is right there, my new email. And then I'm also the program director of MFML, which is the Mother Falcon Music Lab. And we are a summer camp, and, you know, TBD / let's not mention it right now, but we are going into developing some exciting new ventures with this opportunity, and we are working on it, and we hope that you stay tuned with mfml.org. Thank you.
All right. Winnie, how about for you? So rule of thumb to keep in mind, and then plug those classes.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, because we're managing so many different teachers, is that it doesn't have to be perfect. We have some teachers who had like ring lights and like 2 iPads and like a TV monitor to watch the gallery view, and like they just had such intense setups, wireless headphones, and you know, admittedly their classes were initially more professional than our teachers who were dancing, you know, in their bedrooms, because that was the private space they had in their house with roommates. But I think in addition to that, it doesn't have to be perfect, is that it's community first. Like people started taking our classes not because they're these super polished, high production things, but because people wanted to participate in the community that they were already part of. So I think not being afraid to like jump into it, even if you feel like you have technical limitations, people still want to feel connected to each other right now. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we have 50 classes a week. They're mostly targeted at adults, though we do welcome children in a lot of them. And you can find information about that at skycandyaustin.com.
Great. Anu, how about for you?
Yeah, I think I echo just that everything that the others have mentioned. Being open. I was also a little hesitant myself, not being as techno savvy as I think maybe some others may be, and I think I've realized that this is a whole new medium, and so being open to it and being open to the possibilities has really made it possible for me to actually embrace it and say, oh, maybe I'll continue this even. So I never thought that I would ever come to that point, but it's just been a few weeks and I'm already at the point where, wow, okay, I'm going to be able to see some students and reach students that would like to be in the class. And I'm really eager to discover more possibilities as I, interact with this medium. And it's really great to hear all you other folks out there using this medium and encouraged by it. So,
Right.
yeah.
And Anu, how much more tech savvy would you say you are now than before you started? Because me personally, I've found that I've been able to accomplish a lot, and I've only gained that much tech knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the interface for these apps is easier now. I think, just everything is laid out very clearly. And so I think I feel like relatively in control of what I'm doing, but there may be things, options or settings that I'm not aware of, and I'm still trying to learn all that. So those are the things that I think I'm still open to and trying to keep on top of.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as our classes, I mean, I teach all my classes, and we're sort of at the end, coming to the end of our semester in May, but I'm planning to continue after that. And if you go to austindanceindia.com, we'll have information up there about classes.
Fantastic. And finally, Jessica.
I feel like everybody said such wonderful stuff. You guys are really, really smart. I'm so glad. Thank you, Asaf and Jenny, for bringing everybody together, because this has been very helpful for me. I will say, I go through my set list before each class, and I look at each exercise, and I'm like, how can I use this? What can I do in this medium to make this work? And some of them are very obvious, and some of them are very fun, and some of them are like, how am I going to do that? So I kind of think of it as like a key. Like, you figure out what you've got, what you know, and how it can work, and you figure out what they need, and then you see how you can fit what you have to what they need. And that's that underlying kind of mantra of like, what have I got that they can use, has been really helpful for me. We've developed a bunch of new classes. So I'm gonna talk more than other people, sorry. But we realized that a lot of children are at home and bored. We realized a lot of children are at home and bored. So we have classes for 5 to 8-year-olds, classes for 9 to 13-year-olds, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's a drop-in class. You can just come in and play games with other kids. Like, it's just a fun thing. It's $7. You're in a Zoom class with 8 to 10 other kids. The kids have been really enjoying it. It's been a lot of fun. We have a family class on Saturday at 4 o'clock, where a teacher teaches you how to do games with the people in your household. So they'll be like, I'm setting up this game. Then you go play it with the people in your household, come back for more games. That's been super fun. We've always had a kids show at 11 o'clock on Sunday. And now, we still have that just in Zoom, and it's been super fun. But now we've added a Thursday 4 o'clock class, because I feel like that's when people are starting to, like, it's either the last hour of work and they're like, hey child, why don't you watch a show? Or they're getting ready for dinner. So that's all of our kids things. Our adults things are very similar. We have a lot of adult classes happening all the time. We have a ton of adult shows. You can find out all of that at hideouttheater.com. Also, just in case anybody's interested, I used to be a professional clown. This Sunday at 1 o'clock on our Hideout Theater Facebook Live thing, I'm going to be doing a white face clown face. So if you know anybody who's just been interested in doing white face clown, you can go to our Facebook page. I've got all the information about what to buy if you want to follow along, or you can just watch. So just random stuff.
It's a lot of great offerings. Well, and I just want to toss in one other best practice to consider, and it's slightly touched upon so far. As teachers, we need to allow ourselves to be imperfect. I've taught for 25 years, and the thing I had to learn, which was hard to do at first, was to be okay screwing this up, because then it allows our students to screw it up. And if they're worried about screwing it up, they don't learn as much. So we have to set by that example, and why not embrace that aspect of this opportunity to really embrace, there are lots of little ways we're gonna get this wrong as we figure out what works best for each classroom that we create. So with that, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I also want to once again mention the Artists Emergency Fund that the Austin Creative Alliance has set up, which is on our homepage, which is so far distributed to a couple of dozen different artists in town to help them cover bills that they would not be able to cover otherwise because of lost revenue, lost gigs. And I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank Winnie and Anu and Clara and Jenny and Jessica, and a shout out to Mr. Michael Furstenfeld from Make Ever Media, who's been helping us deal with the tech stuff on our own. Plug to him. If you're not sure how to deal with the tech, maybe hire him to at least get you started on it. And thank you all. Don't forget, stay safe, stay sane, and stop buying all the toilet paper.